So we are, what do we have tonight? We have a great, I think, a great selection of presenters tonight. So we have in the very beginning a snooty presentation by Brian, and then talking about I guess we could call it a technical shot, talking about the type of the uses and how you use a snoot, and then to Steve with going into Bonaire and to see how 2024 looks in Bonaire. And then, not that it's applicable to anything that we do here, Andrew is going to talk about low vis photography, when we always have 100-foot visibility and Cape Ann. So we really don't need this, Andrea, but we're being nice and
Okay.
and having you talk. Brian, if you want to begin talking a little bit about the snoot and how you use it.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me get screen share rocking.
See me, I'm snooty.
All right, hold on, just move things around. We swapped to Google Meet at work, so I'm a little rusty with Zoom. All right, oops, hold on. All right. Why is that not showing? Okay. Yep. Full screen, no bars. All right, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Weber. My presentation is called Beam Me Up Snooty. So I got a snoot probably like 4 or 5 months ago now, and I've been playing around with it. So I figured I'd share some information about me. As I mentioned, my name is Brian Weber. I'm a Capricorn. I like short walks on the beach in my full dive gear, followed by a plunge into cold, dark water. I think that's pretty typical. Everybody likes that. I've been diving since 2014. I've been diving locally since 2015. I have a little over 600 dives, and nearly all of them with some sort of camera in my hand. I started off with a GoPro Hero 3. And then in 2018 went to a TG5, and then last year upgraded to the Olympus EPL9 mirrorless camera.
I choose bachelor number 2.
So here's the gear that I'm working with. So this is my little tray with the Olympus EPL9, the backscatter octo housing, which is a fancy looking AOI housing, but I like the octopus print on it. I use a Sola 2000 focus light. The non-snoot is a CNC YS01. For the lenses with the camera, I either use a 60mm or a 14-42 zoom lens, and I'll often dive with a wet diopter, which it's not in this particular picture. But the star of the show is the backscatter MF1 with OS1 snoot. All right, so super quick, super basic. Need a light? Yes, absolutely. As we go down underwater, the water eats the colors. Very quickly you lose the reds and then the magentas. You definitely saw this in your advanced open water course. You went down and saw the colors disappear. So we want that color back. So we spend a big pile of money to bring that light with us to get all the colors. Okay, great. So we need some sort of light, but why a snoot? So the snoot narrows the beam of the flash to a small area. And so that really gives you a lot of creative options as far as, targeting certain specific parts of an animal, or, basically making the animal or the subject stand out from the background, or there's all sorts of interesting things you can do. You can create really, really dramatic shadows. And so it's a lot of fun to just try some different stuff. It also can be helpful in managing backscatter, because you're not lighting up the whole scene, and you can potentially put the snoot close to your subject. There's not a lot of water and therefore backscatter that you're shooting through, in the case that you happen to be shooting in some low visibility conditions like we definitely don't have here. So how do you snoot? I'll give a little sort of visual demo in a second, but here's sort of the technique that I've kind of worked out practicing and reading online and such. So generally I line up the subject in my viewfinder and then kind of roughly compose the shot that I want. And then while I'm looking through the viewfinder, I move the snoot around with my free hand. So I need one hand to hold the camera and be able to press the shutter. The other hand's on the snoot, moving it around. Again, I'll show that in a second. So tip number 1, snooting in surge or current is a recipe for sadness and failure. You're moving, the subject's moving, the narrow beam of your snoot is moving all over the place. If you attempt this, see tip number 2. Tip number 2, have 3 hands. I'm always like, man, I can't like hold on, like sort of steady myself on a rock, manage the, move the snoot around, and then also press the shutter. So that third hand would be super nice. Haven't figured that out yet. All right, so I'm gonna pause the share. Let's see. I think I gotta stop and then I'll highlight myself. Oops, that's the opposite of what I wanted to do. Okay. So as I mentioned, I use the backscatter MF1. They have an MF2 is out. It looks very similar. So this is it. Nice little compact strobe. It's got the 18650 battery, so very standard battery. It's got a knob to control the power. It has you can use it as a spotting light too, which is obviously useful for aiming and seeing what you're pointing at. And then the addition, another purchase, of course, got to throw a little bit of extra money at this problem, is the snoot. So this is just, basically a tube, a little lens on here. It's got this little slider here that you can use to control the size of the light beam. So I'll show that in a second. And again, it's got the built-in light, so you can. There we go. Can't really get it in the shot, but anyways, yeah. So you can see that it's if I take that off, it's a super wide, so just a sort of a regular wide strobe beam with the snoot on. This is the widest setting. It's fairly, it's narrower. Turn that up. And then you can use this slider to narrow it and narrow it and narrow it. So you can, put your little spotlight beam on any size subject your heart desires. Obviously, the narrower you go, the harder it is to aim. But so I'd probably reserve those small settings for some nice calm days. But so that's the basics of how it works. So just to sort of show that technique that I was talking about, step back so we can see it. I'm at, obviously I have this on a tray. This is in the housing, but so the snoot is hanging here, roughly pointed somewhere. I'll usually try to kind of early in the dive, kind of line it up at a reasonable distance from something I may want to take a picture of. So like I said, I'll compose it in the viewfinder, and then try to basically, usually sort of hold the back of it, grab onto it like this, and aim it around while I'm looking at the viewfinder. And then I usually have lost it entirely, so I'll peek over and see where it's pointed. And then once I get it lined up, I hope that I can stay still for enough time to actually snap off the shot, and then hit the shutter. This thing it's a strobe, so you get a brighter flash in the little snoot beam, and repeat until you get it. So that's the basic technique that I tend to do on my dives when I'm messing with it. All right. Get the presentation back. All right. So as I mentioned, there's a catch. This particular snoot, strobe snoot combination has an aiming light, which helps a lot, but it's still hard sometimes, particularly diving in very shallow water. Even though this beam is fairly bright, it can still be tough to see it from the background. You'll see it when you press the shutter, and you can see how badly you missed. But sometimes it's hard to see exactly where it's pointed. I don't know. I can't imagine trying to do it without an accurate aiming light. It just seems like you'd never get it. But yes, so do your best, line it up, get it all squared away, and then hope. And then you're gonna have a lot of subs like this, a lot of frames like this where you're like, oh shoot, almost had it. That's a weird spot. I didn't want that light behind it. I wanted to light it up. I wanted to light up the Sorrentid. Ooh, well, okay. Nope, now I'm off to the side. Okay, hold on. Wait till I drift right into the right spot. Oh yeah, all right. Let me just get this moon snail. No, not that hermit crab. I wanted the big moon snail in the back there. There's a grubby. You can just see the guy highlighted the very back of his tail. So that's what I was getting. I could do an entire presentation with these images. This one, oh, I got a nice close up of a sand shrimp, lit up the middle of his back. Perfect. So, and then I ended up with this sort of creepy, out of focus, lurking flounder shot, which not what I was going for. But if you do manage to get it, you can produce some cool stuff. And the thing that I really like about it is that there's a lot of subjects that, like, you go diving and you see them every single dive. You see them all the time. You see lots of them. You've taken a million pictures. You don't really know. You're like, all right, well, yeah, I could get the another flavolina, climbing on the rock. Great, okay. But the snoot now lets me do all sorts of different stuff. So now I can get, this one was actually positioned very nicely, just up on top, and so I could, light it up from directly above, and then get this, nice crisp dark background. So it lets you, sort of revisit subjects you have thousands of pictures of already, and do something a little bit different. Hermit crabs, right? Every single dive, every single time you see them, they're always running around. This one happened to be like climbing on a piece of kelp with some bryozoans, and so same thing. I just sort of put the snoot over the top of them, and you get these nice dramatic shadows below, and then that dark black background. So you really, the subject really pops. This is far and away the most dramatic moon snail picture I've ever taken. Moon snails are great. I love moon snails, but there's only so much you can do with them from a photography perspective. So it's like, we'll put them in the spotlight. We'll like pump the contrast way up. Super dramatic. Anemones are awesome snoot subjects. Anytime I see lined anemones like this one, I've got more pictures. Anemones are great. The lined anemones are a little tiny, and so you get like a colony of a bunch of them, and I tried to use the snoot beam to kind of highlight one, so it brightens up a little bit, and they're nice because they're like that semi-translucent, so they kind of glow when you light them right. This is our friend, the northern red anemone at Folly Cove. It was all tucked in, didn't want to come out to play, but and I feel like every time I go up there, it's always, I mean, maybe it's me. I think it's also just generally kind of stirred up there. So I was like, all right, let's try the snoot and just highlight the little tentacles sticking out. Again, a friend I've visited a bunch of times, but doing something a little different. So another anemone shot, you know, just a frilled anemone, again, fairly common at a lot of dive sites, but I like the way this just glows and there's no other light in the image. So this is something I'm definitely gonna like keep refining and keep trying because I love the way it looks. Like it just lights up. And you can also, I mean, like sometimes when you have them closed, I'll probably try to do that as well when they're closed up and you get that kind of pumpkin look to them. You know, you get like a glowing pumpkin. Sounds pretty cool. This is Dead Man's Fingers, soft coral. Same thing. They produce that nice kind of glowy look. I was wishing I had my full like macro setup for this shot because there's a bunch of little eggs in the I don't know, I guess these are anemones hanging down. There were a bunch of little eggs and a couple of the little tiny Eubrancus nudies. So, but I didn't have a good macro setup for that dive, so I was like, oh well, I'll get my main subject and have the bonus eggs in there. This is one of my favorite shots I've managed with the snoot. If you don't recognize this beautiful face, it's a northern puffer. And it was very cooperative. It was just hanging out in the sand while I was like goofing around with the snoot. And then finally I managed to get just the very tip of its nose with the little, you know, those teeth. So that's a fun one. Again, northern puffers, love them. Photographed them a million times. So, you know, doing something different is fun. This is a shot that I really like. I took this 2 weeks ago. And this was exactly those conditions that I described where there's like, you know, some surge going. I'm like, I spotted this little grubby in the weeds and I was like, oh, I love the idea of like shooting through the weeds and getting some foreground stuff that I can get, you know, nice and out of focus. And then I use the snoot to light up just the grubby. And so I spent a couple minutes, you know, sort of rocking back and forth, trying to aim it. And I made it extra hard on myself because I got to get the right angle through the weeds to even see the fish. And eventually I was just like, you know, I just like squeezed the shutter and then like swam away. And then when I came up, I was like, oh my gosh, I got it. Like I like had basically given up and I took this one shot and I was like, oh, sweet. So yeah, I like the sort of the dark kind of mysterious foreground and then the fish lit up in there. This is another one, a 3-line mud snail. Every single dive, there's sand on the dive. They're everywhere. They're all over the moon snail egg casings. They're all over the place. But one thing I noticed is that if they're moving through the sand, they often move in a straight line. And so what I did was I like managed to basically get myself set up so that I had the snoot beam a little bit out in front of it. Kind of got the focus and everything kind of where I wanted, and then the snail just came right into the light. Snap, you know, took a couple snaps, and I liked the way this came out because it's you know they're pretty small, so you don't really see a lot of the details, but yeah, I like the way this one came out, and like I don't even know what I would have, you know, like I don't know what I would have done with a sort of a regular strobe to kind of make this shot interesting. That's it. That's all I got. Questions, thoughts? I know some of you also use snoots, and so if you have helpful tips to share, I would be very happy to take those.
Well, does anyone have who?
Yeah, Brian, I use the snoot too, used to, but my my camera has a very long barrel in front of it, the port, and it was very hard to hold the snoot. Let me turn on the camera. Just wanted to share with you a few things. Can you see me?
Yeah.
So this is the snoot, right? I don't know the background.
I'll stop sharing so we can.
So instead of holding it perpendicular, I try to go like this. Can you see me? Go like this. Can you see me? Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, we're getting some echo.
Let me turn background on. Okay, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, so it was very hard for me to hold the way I wanted because I wasn't able to focus. It was too far. So I was actually pull my hand closer to me and I tilted that way. So
Yeah, yeah, no, and that definitely makes sense. Yeah, because you only got so much reach, right? You're like,
exactly
okay,
right.
this is, like I'm already like, sort of I have my arm extended to hold the camera up so I can see it in front of my face. And then yeah, just that extra reach. Yeah,
I was
that's a
actually
good.
I was contemplating an idea to attach a little stick so you could
Oh, there you
operate.
go.
Yeah,
Little
underwater.
extension. Yeah.
Yeah, but the best thing to do if you have I had my wife with me, so she was actually directing the snoot and I was taking picture.
Yeah, yeah. I thought of that. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, I've schemed about that with
Well,
buddies.
I cannot lend you my wife, but you need to figure out.
Yeah. Right. So that's the three hands solution right there.
Exactly. That's the best way to
that's
do
the
it.
achievable way.
Right, yeah. And you can actually move the camera you want it because she was holding it exactly above the subject and all the arms were undone. You just
Yeah.
move freely and you take pictures. That's the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
some of
there we go.
the photographers, if they're out there on an assignment for some specific animal, then they have someone that's with them who is holding the snoot, and that's it for the
Yeah.
dive. Yeah,
Yeah.
quite the luxury.
Yeah.
I've actually put the
Need a snoot
strobe and
Sherpa.
snoot on a tripod.
Say that again?
I've actually put the strobe and a snoot on a tripod. And then I just grabbed this. I don't know if you guys ever use these, the anglerfish. I think it's called an angler. It's a remote trigger so that I can have the normal strobe flash, but dim enough that it doesn't destroy the image of the snoot, and it will trigger the snoot, the snooted strobe that's on a tripod. So
Cool.
I'll like bend it behind, especially for it's great for like the nudibranchs and Pierce Island and stuff, is you can get them backlit and you can have it sitting there, and as it sways, you basically wait until it passes into the beam of light and then you snap it, and you don't have to worry about kind of that third hand.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to add was
So
I also picked up one of
backscatters.
these.
Oh, the double. Yeah.
It's fiber optic snoots, and this is you want to talk about finicky. There's no way to do it other than on a tripod, as far as I can tell. But when you have this mounted, you can actually do it so that it's backlit at one point, and whatever kind of lighting you want to get from single direction lighting, and it gives some nice effects. So this one's designed to go on the end of a YS strobe. But I found these kind of snoots also kind of fun to play with, but they're finicky and they can be a real bugger to work with.
If you're
Fun.
frustration
Comes with some
level
fun
here
lighting.
and you want to get it to here.
Yeah, it's well. I mean, again, you're sitting there, you're pinpointed around behind. There's no way you can handhold this and then have this tiny fiber optic, But I found for like things that I anticipate where they're moving in, like the snails and things like that, you can often kind of set it, put it just in advance, and they go right into the light, which is kind of cool. So
Yeah.
But nice images. I can't imagine not using a snoot now. I love the effect of the light.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Backscatter does
So-
have a little stick that you can mount
Yeah.
some sort of light on, and you can place, like basically jab it into the sand or find a spot for it. But yeah, I guess the tripod's more flexible because you can sort of position it on rocks or whatever you
Yeah,
got.
because it's more of a rocks, and I weight it. I use one of those Jobies, the flexible gorilla pods, and then I have like a small, usually it's a soft weight on the bottom to hold it down so it doesn't tip over on me.
Yeah.
Now, Daryl, did you have?
Yeah, I'm happy someone mentioned the tripod because I did try to use one of the backscatter's little poles you just mentioned that are designed for their snoot. And when I went to the Philippines, but I ended up not using it because of setup time. I didn't want to spend too much time setting up when it was other photographers that wanted to take a similar picture. But I do know that Scatter's new version of your snoot does have wireless capability. The downside is you have to buy two of them, I believe.
Yeah.
Because one will sync off of the other. So, there's some technology changes to try to fix some of the issues using a snoot. out
Indeed.
there. And I'm happy you didn't get totally distraught, with the alignment issues.
Yeah. No, it's it comes and goes. Sometimes like, I just want to throw this thing out, and then but most of the time, like, oh, this is pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, Brian, that was terrific. Great. It really was. And
Yeah, thank you.
and before we begin with our next presentation, I want to mention something about next month is our nudibranch presentation. And so I put something in the chat about where to send it. So you'd be sending it to me for my future nudibranch book, as we mentioned, but also to send it, make it a 1024 768 at 100 PPI if you can. If you have any issues at all with trying to conform something like that, just send it to me. I'll send a larger file, anything, and then I can reduce it to that size. I cannot, if you send me a very tiny file, enlarge it because it's just not going to look great. So send me something large, and if it's so large that you might have to send it in a few emails, that's fine too. I'll work with that. It's not a problem. So again, it's to AJ Mart at iCloud. Send the nudibranch images. Now, the question would be how many? Well, that all depends on how many people are going to present. So if we have 300 people who want to show their favorite nudibranchs, well, then we'll have fewer nudibranchs from each person. So let's say, Matt, you let me know. How about July 6th? If you just let me know that you do want to send some nudibranch pictures, you want to participate in this. Once I get by that date, then I'll know there's 12, there's 10, there's whatever. And then we figure out how much time we have and divide that by the number of people. And then, we'd have 10 apiece, we'd have 15, we could have 20. So whatever. And that will give you some sort of guidelines. If you want to take a chance and send more, and because you're going to be busy later, that's no problem at all. Send me a bunch. Just send them to me in the order, your favorite one first, because if we have to cut out some, I'm cutting out from the rear. Okay, if that makes sense. That way I'm not cutting out your favorite nudibranch. So the ones that you like the most, you put in the beginning, or wait until July 7th, and then I'll send out an email to let you know how many you can send. Does that sound okay? Okay. Now, Steve, we're taking this from Snooty Land here in Cape Ann down to some warmer water in Bonaire. So, Steve, take it away.
Let me try and share the screen here. Did it work?
It most certainly did.
All right, hang on 1 second here. I think I can. There we go.
Sure.
All right, and how do I get rid of that? Okay, anyway. All right, so my name's Steve Koffel, and I've been diving since 2012, and I've been taking pictures since like 2013. I pretty much only do one dive trip a year these days. I don't dive around here anymore, and my wife and I just love going to Bonaire, so we make that our vacation. I mean, we started doing the 1 week with Underseas, and we got up to like 3 weeks. Then next year we're going for 2 weeks, but so it's kind of our place, and we just love it there. So we do a combination of the diving through the dive shop, with Underseas and the divvy, and then we stay at an Airbnb and do a bunch of shore diving as well, which is great down there. So then to date, I have about 300 dives. The one downside to only diving once a year is you only get to practice with your camera once a year. So, you know, it gets kind of hard to, you know, go down and, you know, try to get, you know, back comfortable with your gear and everything. You know, so I kind of do try and pick out a couple of things that I want to work on and go with that. So anyway, this is what I'm a sea life guy from way back. Bob Boyle turned me on to the sea life way when I first started. I think he gave me a rental camera back in like 2013, and I've just, you know, upgraded and kept, you know, purchasing the sea life equipment, and that's where I am. So I use the DC 2000, and I've got a couple of the Sea Dragon strobes and extender arms, and I do have a couple different lenses, but this past trip I primarily focused on the a wide angle lens, which you can see in the picture there. So I was working on that. So that was one of my goals, was to try and get better wide angle shots, or at least be able to get closer to something so I could highlight, you know, what I was trying to highlight as a subject, but also get a nice background too. And also I was trying to work with just some better composition, you know, rather than taking, you know, side pictures of fish and overhead shots and things like that. You know, I was trying to get more into, you know, get some movement in the pictures and adding some divers into the photos, you know, trying to tell a story a bit more. So anyway, and I also, with some suggestions from Andy, broke away from the auto modes and tried to do some manual modes as well and work on that. So anyway, this is the first picture I ever took in Bonaire in 2013. So you can see it's just kind of the side view overhead. There's all the colors gone. And so I always kind of look back to these pictures, and, you know, it kind of shows you how much you've accomplished over the years. So anyway, so this same French angelfish, you know, what I liked about this picture was I just thought all the rope in the picture kind of added some, you know, something to the composition of it, you know, rather than the fish all by themselves. This picture of the queen angel, I you know, tried to get kind of that movement as it was coming up the rocks, and I find them a little tricky with the color, you know, to get it right, but I think I kind of got this one. I do use Lightroom primarily for cropping and adjusting white balance a bit, but, you know, I don't get into it too much, you know, other than those things, maybe the exposure a bit here and there too. So I like this picture just because it showed the juvenile spotted drum and the grouper kind of coexisting, you know, rather than just having a picture of one or the other. I mean, I thought it made a nice combination of the two. And likewise with this, I thought it was interesting that this peacock flounder landed on top of a sand diver, and kind of an oddball combination, but you know, I thought it was kind of funny. So this was at the Salt Pier, which is the great site down there, with all these pylons. And, you know, here, you know, I was able to use the wide angle and get close to this very cooperative puffer, but still I was able to light up the pylons and kind of pick up the, you know, the ambient light kind of coming through the surface as well. So, and also, you know, the puffer, I took about 10 or 12 pictures here, and, you know, just having the angle that he's at just kind of, I thought, made the picture better. One thing we ran into on the last dive was this awesome spotted eagle ray that was, like, you know, hunting in the sand and flapping his fins and all kinds of dirt, and so the sand was going everywhere. I just kind of like this picture better in black and white for some reason, you know, than the color picture. I mean, I took another one here, you know, when he came up for a little swim, and you know, but for some reason that picture in the sand just I thought looked better as a black and white. So that was kind of a nice treat, the last dive, to be able to witness all of that. So the other thing I tried to do was I tried to focus on eyes more instead of trying to capture like the entire, you know, fish in the photograph. I tried to get closer, not too close, but you know, and try to focus on the eye and get, you know, more of an expression out of the different fish. So here obviously is the lionfish. And even with the octopus, you know, sometimes I think when they're in the den, it's kind of a cool picture when they've got all this stuff pulled around them, and you know, all you see is a tentacle and an eye, rather than if they're out just kind of free swimming around or whatever. So it makes it easier to focus on something. This guy, the spotted trunkfish, I just couldn't believe like getting that close and what the lips look like. I mean, they look like kind of like human lips almost, and the, you know, just the eye and everything. You know, whereas if I had just taken this shot of the whole fish from back further, it just wouldn't have had that kind of up close feel to it. So, and the chain moray is my favorite moray. So, I mean, just getting one that was cooperating and kind of, you know, looking at me and presenting himself, you know, head first, not tail first or whatever, you know, made for a nice picture. So I also worked on some macro stuff. This is I believe it's like a red reef hermit crab, which we saw a lot of those on this trip. It's funny how things just seem to cycle. You know, you'll see a lot of something one year and nothing the next year. And, you know, I just found that it seemed like every time I looked in one of these barrel sponges, there was something in there, like this arrow crab. And then also we saw a lot of seahorses, and yellow ones and striped ones, and this like red and brown, but I, for the life of me, just cannot seem to get a shot. I mean, they're tricky. They're always just so hidden. But I mean, this one came out pretty good, I guess. And then this, I kind of got pretty good at finding these juvenile scrawled filefish. You know, that's probably about an inch long, and they just kind of hide around the sponges and the soft corals, and saw a lot of those this year, which I found interesting. And the token spotted cleaner shrimp in the anemone, they're everywhere. But you know, I always love trying to find those. I just think back to the first years going there where you just swim right over this stuff because you didn't slow down and like look and see what's actually in you know, in the anemones. And even when you get to this level, then you start seeing things that are even smaller than this. So it just never ends. And this wasn't really a macro shot, but I was just happy that a red lip blenny like stopped. You know, they just are flying all around the corals, and actually got a picture of one finally. And an up close and personal with a fireworm. And we saw a lot of big fireworms this year too. But oops. So anyway, couple new things or different things that we saw was a tiger tail sea cucumber, which these things can grow up to like 6 feet long, and they look like alien tentacles coming out of the coral. And we actually saw a number of these this year. I'd only seen one before. And then this guy, which was a variant of a golden tail moray. I asked somebody at the dive shop because it was a little different. It just I guess on the island they call it a banana moray. I had never seen one that particular color. Usually they're like a little darker than that. So that was kind of a cool new thing to see. And also we saw some slipper lobsters in addition to the regular Caribbean spiny lobsters. So that was something else that was kind of cool for something different. So back to a few years ago and what my pictures looked like before, when I was just putting everything on automatic and clicking away and hoping for the best. But with some help, like I said, from Andy, with some setting changes and whammo, now all of a sudden you can, you're highlighting the foreground, you're getting the face and the color on the lighting up the corals and sponges, and you're still being able to see the background, all the pylons, and just having the divers in the picture like this, with my wife Diana in the foreground there, and one of the other guys on the trip, kind of going across the top, I just thought makes for a more interesting picture. And same here, where you have kind of the silhouettes of divers, in the water column, just adds to the, the picture. And it's just easier to accomplish some of this, with that wide angle lens, because I can just get so much closer to the foreground subject that it allows you to pick up that background. And again, this was a couple of years ago, with everything on automatic, and now, kind of the same types of pictures. The foreground gets lit up with the strobes. You're still, able to see the light at the surface, coming through, and you're able to get closer, to get, a nice subject in the picture, like the banded butterfly fish and the brain corals and all that. And then, even when you're trying to get some of these schools of fish with the pylons, it's just, the ability to get closer with the wide angle lens, really kind of brightens up the picture and the colors. Same with that, kind of the same type of picture. And what the one thing I've learned with some of this is, I'm closer, but I could even get closer, and still, get good composition in some pictures and things like that. So, so that's, that was my progress this year. We've got 2 weeks booked next March, so we'll be heading back, and I'll work off of these settings and move on to the next. So that's it.
Oh, very nice. Very nice, Steve. It's real nice that you added both what you had, or how you shot similar scenes when you first started compared to now. Boy, it's got to make you feel good. You made it really.
Yeah, well, that's why I like going back and looking at those. I mean, I've got some even further back from like back beach and stuff where you can't even tell what I'm taking a picture of. So it's funny.
But everyone has been in the same boat. We all look at our old stuff and you say, "Oh my God, what was I thinking?" But yeah, well, it's great. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Steve?
I love the progression too. I love the the pictures that we all took of everything and just nothing, all the backscatter, and then how far you've come. And I love the pictures of the animal friends together.
Right.
Yeah, that was a great shot.
Yeah, thank you.
Just amazing that was a sand diver, I think it was, never moved. Yeah, the other.
Right, I mean, usually you get close to them and they scoot off to the next, and he came right up and just plopped the peacock flounder right down, and was like, okay.
Nice. That's
Funny,
one of the fun things about diving, where you get to see those things.
right,
There's just a split second and then maybe it all changes, but it's a treat to see it.
yeah.
Steve, I know it's kind of
You're
like
gonna take
asking.
us into low visibility.
I just want to say, Steve, I really like that spotted
Oh, the trunk,
eagle ray, or what
the
was
eagle
that?
ray,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great shot.
That was really nice in the sand.
yeah. Yeah, he, it was right at the end of the last dive of the trip, and it just came up and just spent like probably 20 minutes just, going, almost like it's like a grid. It goes like around, then it turns, it comes back, shifts over a few feet, and it's just going through the sand, flapping the wings and just churning up all the little stuff that it eats. And you've got all those little trunk fish following it, that are grabbing the leftovers. So it was a treat, a good way to end the week.
How close were you when you took that shot?
I could have touched it.
Were you close?
Well, yeah.
Oh,
I could have reached out and patted it on the head.
Wow.
It was just that close and didn't care at all that we were there. Huh? Yeah, it was neat.
The treat also speaks to your calmness in the water, so that it will approach you and not be threatened. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was a good group. Everybody was, had good buoyancy and was very, we had Elizabeth and Lauren and, the regular crowd, a lot of the people, but, that helps a lot, when people aren't kind of chasing or whatever,
for sure.
They will come to you. Most of these, if you just kind of wait, they're curious. So
Wow.
anyway,
Well, again, thank you. A
All
great
right.
presentation.
thank you.
So Andrea,
all right.
you dives here in cold water, and our poor visibility. So what do you do? What is your secret for getting pictures in cold and poor visibility?
4. All right. Well, I'm going to show you. Let me share my screen. And where's the little, is there something where I need to click to show video? Can you hear me and see it?
Andrea, is this in the presentation or it's on a different place?
No, it's all inside of the presentation.
Then you should see the play button and when you
just-
hit it,
Oh,
should-
just hit it. I thought there was like
and
a
that should
toolbar.
automatically recognize that.
right, or yeah.
Yeah, because I thought there was a toolbar that you needed, but just,
No, just
just
right
as
on the,
usual.
yep. And
All
that'll
right.
fill the whole screen at that point. Yep.
All right, so I chose just to use Fort Wetherill for these shooting in low visibility because I can probably guess everybody that dives local knows how poor the visibility can actually be there, even on a good day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with this octopus on what I would consider was really good visibility. But if you notice, like in the top part of the water column, you can see just silt flowing by. And what I'm doing here is I use a TG4, 1 strobe, and a solar light. I use either 1500, a 2000, or a 2500, and to me they're all the same. So I can't say I get better results with one or the other. And I'm usually set up for macro, so my strobe is fairly close to the camera. It's not extended out on an arm. And the strobe that I'm using with this TG4 setup is the CNC YS01. And I shoot it in manual mode, and I think I touch the buttons more on the strobe than I do on the camera. I'm pretty much shooting macro, and I'll put it on program and sometimes aperture priority. But I never really do like those custom settings. I'll just flip back and forth to those and try to get good results, which is sometimes difficult, as we know at Fort Wetherill. It's kind of tricky with the octopus because they tend to go away, but I just would just, when I see one, sort of just watch their behavior. And as you see, this guy he didn't mind the camera or the lights. And here's another one, don't mind the noise. And you can see like I'm shooting downwards. So I'm not getting the water column behind the animal, but you could see him like stirring up some silt, and then there's some, you could see the silt in the top right just from the lights. But I would say the visibility was probably 15 feet on this night. And this, I didn't have a chance to move my lights or strobe around, because you can really see the light is highlighting the silt and backscatter in the water. But if I move, I was afraid that this scallop was going to clam shut and I wouldn't have gotten all of this detail, of the eyes and the mantle. And so would I do it again different? Well, if I knew it wouldn't shut, I would have rearranged my strobe a little bit to eliminate some of the backscatter. And those are on fairly good visibility days. This is really how it is.
Good.
It's a long video, but
It's
there's a
waving
reason.
floor. Wow. Nice.
And this goosefish was probably 8 inches. He was very tiny, but see, the odds are against us in this in this cove, because just look at what he did.
It's tough when the animals mess up the viz. That's just brutal.
See?
Well, at least the current's going away from you, so it's
Yeah.
not.
And I like just the last 4 seconds of the video when he puts his little lure down, like, hey, thanks for the lighting. But yeah, this is really what it looks like when you're diving there. And it is what it is, but you get to see some pretty amazing critters if you can put up with the silt. And here's another video of a bobtail squid. I was close, and then I thought he was taking off for good. You could see it blurry, lots of backscatter. I don't know what that annoying sound is either, but he just kind of settled down and creating more silt. But but that was very tiny. I don't know if it was barely an inch, because you
Really?
could see some of the slipper shells in that little pile, and they're small. And
Wow.
then going there, of course, is mainly to see the squid certain times when you go there. And I would have to say all of these are taken on night dives. This guy, if you get to see him eating, it's awesome. I've seen one, he squeezed the fish and there was little bubbles coming out of the poor fish. So you can get some good action shots or you just observe their behavior. And like with this, like if you go after the squid a little bit, it might tend to go away, but this guy was just coming towards me more and more and just enjoying his meal, because otherwise you'll just spit out the fish, ink, and then take off. Little bit of silt, but it comes with the territory. And then this one, I just like the way that top tentacle is going over the poor little fish's eye. It's like doomsday for that guy. And this, when these are happening, I just keep shooting. I don't really, unless I stop and then rearrange my strobes, but the strobe really hit the bottom of that fish a lot. So it's like blown out a little bit. Had I been able to do it again, I would have just moved the strobe away from it. Or maybe even my spotting light could have been hitting it too. So there's not too many opportunities you get when it's perfect. So you just kind of get what you get sometimes. But yeah, if you had all the time in the world, you could reposition the strobes. Then this, he just came right up to the lens. Looks like a little bit, you know, action shot. And then this squid was not moving. The fish that he ate was giant, and I think he was just trying to gulp it down. So it was like I was moving all around this squid, and he wasn't giving up his meal. So that's why, I mean, I was able to position myself, move the lights, and really, you know, try to compose the shot. Of course, I didn't get the whole body, but with the TG4 and macro, I was happy with the eye and the fit and the little tail coming out and the tentacles and the suction cups. And that's the same one. He was, I think he got the fish down and now he's probably too full to take off. So. And this is just a different one, different day in the shallows. It seems like later on at night as you're diving here, like you can start at say sunset if it's like at 8:30, and it gets heated up as the night goes on. So this is probably in 4 or 5 feet in the very shallow part of the beach coming like towards the exit. And a lot of them will just sit in there. And that's how I found a couple and was able to compose the shot without it taking off. And sneaking up on one. And then here's a burrfish. They made an appearance, I think there was some sightings at Folly Cove, right, Brian? Remember that? Yeah.
Yep.
And this
Yeah,
was,
that was awesome.
yeah, this one was at Fort Wetherill. The eye isn't perfectly in focus, but then again, this animal was probably chased by however many divers was in the water. And I just figured once he settled in this little corner, I went up and I, you know, I got it as best as I could. You can see there's some backscatter in the back. But not terrible. And then a lot of tropicals will come up and get caught in this cove, like I would say end of August into September. And of course, they'll probably not survive once it comes October, but they're pretty nice to spot a filefish. when you would expect to see them, like in Bonaire or somewhere tropical. And then here's a scrawled filefish. Now, the viz was so murky this night, but I don't even know how this came out, to be honest with you, because my buddy had his light shining behind. And I don't know if it was the way I must have had my lights pointing like wider. But I didn't get much backscatter. And I use Lightroom 5. Okay, so that's not even the subscription. It's like, I don't even know how old it is, 5 or 6 years old. And I'll just do a little bit of touching up. I mean, I can't do much because it's not the subscription with all those nice additions on it. But I looked at the before and after, and there really wasn't much of a difference. I think whatever position that my buddy's light had, I think helped. And then I think this is called the little big eye. I'm not big on shooting fish because they move, but this one just kind of planted itself right in front of me.
How big is that, Andrew?
This one, I would say like 2 inches. But I like the detail on the dorsal fin.
Yeah.
Like a little, I don't know, it's cute. Another little filefish hiding in the sargassum weed. That's a good place also to find pipefish and seahorses. So I didn't really have good positioning with my strobe because you could see, excuse me, more backscatter. But this sargassum is always swaying too. So I didn't know if the fish was going to take off, so I just really shot it without positioning the strobes better. And then this, I must have had everything lined up just perfectly because usually these guys are like picking around and they're also in the sand stirring up like little worms that they're eating. But I just took this one shot, black background, you know, and not much backscatter. So I was pleased with this one. And then I saw a snorkel, and I'm not really one for picking up trash in the water, but I did look at it. And when I came around, I saw this little octopus, and he had an eastern slipper shell, which is so tiny. As you can see, the mouthpiece of a snorkel is very tiny. And then he's got that. So I took a few shots of him. He actually pulled that eastern slipper shell in the tube of the snorkel, and it was like his little house. He was all, you know, happy. But yeah, you just never know what you're going to pick up for trash. I was in the Philippines 2 months ago, and we were in a trashy little area. And it was a night dive, and there was a pretty large epilepsia, sea hare, and it was laying eggs on candy wrappers. So even like if you're gonna pick up a candy wrapper, you really just don't know. I mean, I'm not one, I don't litter myself, but you just don't know what you'll be picking up and whose family you're gonna destroy. But I was just surprised, like this, I don't know if you've ever seen sea hare eggs, but they're tiny, long strands, and it just makes this giant pile, and it was all wrapped within the candy wrappers. Here's a little octopus hiding in a quahog. This was tough because it was very silty, and I tried using the red light on my solar light, and all I was getting was a red photograph. So I never can use the red light. So I had to just be patient when the silt cleared in my area, and then I took a shot, and he was poking out his little eyes. This has to be my favorite shot of all time. This octopus was hanging out with this black sea bass, and he was practically imitating the look of the black sea bass with the dark eye. Because minutes later, he's still in the black sea bass mode, and then he went to that.
Oh,
It was just nice seeing what they can do. And I don't know if they work together, but a lot of times I'll see the octopus, and close by I'll see a black sea bass.
hmm.
And this, my version of wide angle, the lined anemones, and I think they call that a ghost anemone, that little orange one. And you could see, I'm fairly close, but the visibility was pretty good that day. And I would say this is a day dive opposed to a night dive. I wouldn't be looking for those at night. And then that's the northern stony coral covering all of the rocks. It's everywhere, but a lot of times you can't really get a good shot. But it was fairly good visibility. And always the way, jump in the water. There's a big patch of eelgrass. I don't know how many feet, maybe 50 feet. And I'm always looking for seahorses and other little critters. Well, here's, of course, the seahorse. Bad positioning with the strobes, and then there was a sandstorm after that, so I just left it. Then you have other times, same patch of eelgrass, but this was at the end of the dive, so my strobes are in a good position, and I don't want to say the viz was poor, but he came out cute. Little belly.
Oh,
And then good reason to put up with the low visibility is you just never know what you'll find in the cove. These are box crabs. I don't think they're really common around here. And they come in an array of colors. I've seen like greenish, this orange color, there's red. But they're tricky to photograph. You have to really be ready to shoot them because they're fast, and then they stop and they bury themselves. And then a side-gilled nudibranch, velutinid, I think. I have video of this. I don't have it tonight, but this was moving around the sand in the middle of the sand area, like all over the place. I've never seen one move so fast. Well, I've never seen one up here anyway. So, and this was probably like 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So that was a highlight, because we don't get those up in Cape Ann. On his, a nudibranch that I found, Caliplocamus racemosus. It was at Fort Wetherill. I've seen them there twice now. And they're found, I think, in the Mediterranean, Japan, and South Africa.
wow.
And it's a real beautiful nudibranch. I've seen one at Burnham Rock before.
And what size is that?
It's at least 2.5 to 3 inches.
Whoa.
It's good size. And like I've seen them around here before, and this was the egg string. So I don't think it just sort of floated here. I don't want to say they're here all the time, but it was shocking to see. thrilling to see.
Yeah, I've never seen one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
because it was in an area where I thought it was one of those little orange frilled anemones that with the ghost anemone. I think that's what they call it. And then when I looked, I was like, oh my gosh, it's got rhinophores and gills. So I went back and I says, oh, I've seen this here before. And then at Burnham.
Hmm.
And then here's Thecacera panagira. I guess these are sort of in the same family as the Pokemon or Poke something.
Pikachu.
Pikachu, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, these are noted to be around here, and I've seen them a few times down at Fort Wetherill. I've
Right.
saw reports of them being, I think, in Falmouth. But this is very small. It looks huge in this picture, but it's probably a half an inch, if that. And some of them were smaller. And that's it.
Wow, fabulous. Great
Thank
picture.
you.
So you can
Wonderful
shoot them.
grid.
It's possible.
Wow. That's so amazing. All these variety of critters I've never seen. I mean, those couple of those nudibranchs, holy cow. Now, the octopus, I know like 2 years ago you were seeing them often. Was that 1 year or so, or did you see them more times than just one season?
Seen them probably more than that. I saw one last fall. There was one. But the conditions were kind of tough last year too, between rain and storms and all of that. So I didn't get down there as much as I did previous years. But I would say there was probably 2 or 3 years where we were finding them like 5 a night, constant. And now it was one last year. And it was a small one. Some of those were, nice size. I don't know, like 5 or 6 inches maybe. They look bigger than they really are. But yeah, the one we saw last year was small. But it was just good being able to see one.
But for sure, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
those images. Well, does anyone have any questions for Andrea? I mean, this is terrific.
Andrea, you have one strobe and one video light. Is that what you're taking these pictures with?
These are, yes. I do have 2 strobes. But this was before I got the second strobe. And I really, sometimes I don't see a difference with my TG4 with 1 strobe or 2. I don't know why. But yeah,
Well-
these were before I got the second strobe. And I was in the Philippines and I had the 2 strobes. And then at the end, I was just using 1 because the camera was getting heavy.
These
And
are
it's not
great.
even a big camera, but
And
a little bit counted.
you really got, rid of the backscatter with, the angle. Really, really great.
It is, it's the angle. And then
Yep.
trying not to scare the animal. Except
Well,
for the
Andy-
nudibranch isn't going to move other than, they're always on that red seaweed swaying.
Andrea, you mentioned that you turned off the red light on your modeling light because it was showing up on the image.
Yep.
Is that when you're using a strobe and it's still doing that?
Yes. Yep. I even tried it again when we were in the Philippines. I was having major issues on the night dives with like swarms of shrimp and worms, and like it was clouded. So I did try with the red light, and I was just getting a red image.
Could you is that light on high? Could you turn it
I
down?
never, yeah, I never put it on high. It's always on low.
Wow, the strobe doesn't overpower that?
No.
Yeah, I wonder if the shutter is not fast enough on the like the TG isn't picking a fast enough shutter to I don't know. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
surprising.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
should try it again up here.
yeah, it'd be worth another try because it usually that's the saving grace when you get all those little critters
Oh,
crowding around the light and you can't get rid of them. And red solves, but geez, if you're getting a red glow.
yeah, what I was doing when I was like totally engulfed, I mean, you couldn't even see the animal. The frogfish loved it because they were getting the free meal. I
Sure.
would just I put my camera, faced it towards the back of me, and just sat there while I got pummeled with these critters. And then I would put my hand on the shutter button, pull it over, and like focus and get a shot with maybe 25 of those worms and shrimps in the photo. But yeah,
Wow.
I could not get that red light not to show up on the image.
Do
I'm
you
gonna try it again.
do you carry a hand light also or an auxiliary light?
No, but I want to go back to the handheld, get rid of the strobes and just use the handheld like
No,
back in the day.
what I was thinking is that if you had that handheld light, a bright source, put it off to the side,
Oh,
let them all go crazy and knock themselves out on that light, and then free up what you are doing.
well, that's
Uh,
a good idea.
I mean, you reduce them, but maybe then your approach, I'm just guessing here, your approach of sort of, setting up and then turning off the light or putting your hand over it and then let them go for the strong one and then take your hand off and shoot. But
Yeah, and it was only like when you were swimming and kicking through um, the dive site, they weren't there. It was only when you stopped, they came from every which way. So like going with the spotting light, to catch up with my guide, it was clear. But then when you stopped, of course, the light attracted these. So I tried the red light and then I was just getting red photographs. And I had a TG5 on that trip too. So I used the TG5. I even put a ring light on it. And even with the ring light, I was getting the red.
wow. Hmm.
It's the Solar 1500 is the only light that I have with the red. The 25, I don't have a red light on it.
It'd be worth contacting Olympus, see what they can shed any, I hate to say
Yeah.
shed light on it, but
Yeah.
give you some information.
And not the red one.
Yeah, because that's very strange for that to.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, wonderful presentation
Yeah.
and all presentations tonight. They were terrific. It was
Great.
a nice variety of topics. And so next month is again the Nudibranch night. So please let me know. And so then what I will do, if you weren't at the last meeting, I will take all of your images and there'll be, for example, Tom Gately. Tom is on, let's say Tom's first. Well, then he'll begin. I will have them all and they'll just run. So when we finish Tom's, then we'll go to Timor, then we'll go to Andrea and so forth. And then I think that'll be just a nice smooth flow. You can certainly obviously do the oration part. I mean, you can let me know, okay, next or whatever, or spend some time on one of the images and that's fine. But I think rather than have everyone set up and take down, it's just easier to do it all on one. So again, unless we hear otherwise, the final date is just to let me know that you want to participate is July 6th. So then we'll go from there.
Sergey,
will
is this
you-
is this the North Atlantic nudibranchs or any?
No, anyone's,
Anyways, okay.
any nudibranchs.
Andy, will you and Andrea do the narration where I basically go something like, I took a picture of this thing, it looked kind of cool, and you can tell me what it is?
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great.
Because that's
when we
pretty
go
much my
fast
knowledge of
forward.
marine life.
Yeah.
Here's the fish.
Yeah, I'd be hitting the
Live
advanced
ID.
button. Yeah. So, yeah, but yeah, in any location, they can be a little of each, a little, a sample of different spots. It can be all, whatever, Norway, Caribbean, Indo-Pacific, anything. It's just nudibranchs. It's just a celebration of nudibranchs.
Andy, one more question. On the picture, should be name of the nudibranch and a location? Just the picture.
No, just the picture, I think, unless
Okay.
if you can let us know if you think the names should be on there, but I think just looking for, I personally just looking for the visual impact and just to see these creatures, see the beauty of these
Okay, great.
animals.
Tamara, obviously you missed my question. Mine will be thingy one, thingy two.
That's why I hit
Yeah,
advance.
probably I
advance,
did. Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for
Thank you,
joining
everyone.
the meeting tonight.
Thank
And
you.
look
Thank you.
forward to seeing all the nudibranchs next month.